welcome once again to the unit 4th lecture of BP 103T of Pharmaceutics. So, my name is Anjali Mishra and I am an assistant professor at Noida Institute of Engineering and Technology, Pharmacy Institute, Greater Noida. So, we are here to discuss another lecture on suppositories. Here we are going to understand the calculation of displacement value and the evaluation of suppositories. So, let us begin. So, before beginning, let us understand what is suppository. So, as we have said earlier, suppositories are nothing but they are the medication or the medicament which are inserted into a body cavity. So, when we are making suppositories, when we are formulating suppositories so that they can enter into the body cavity and melt and show the action, it is very important to understand how to prepare, what should be the percentage of base, how much API should be added, in what ratio they are incorporated. So, in order to understand that, let us understand how suppositories are made first. Because if we do not understand this concept, the displacement value concept is going to be a little more complex. So, before moving into this displacement value, let us understand what is actually displacement value, how it has come, what is the picture behind it. So, let us understand. So, suppositories are made by using two important things. The very first thing is the base and the another thing is nothing but the API. API is nothing but the medication in which we are using in which we are incorporating or in which is incorporated into the base. So, let us understand base is something which forms the major chunk part of your suppository and API are something which is incorporated into the suppository in order to form a proper suppository and firm and rigid suppository. The nature of the base is going to govern how firm and rigid your suppositories are. So, how much percentage of base must be used, how much API must be incorporated is all determined by a value known as displacement value. So, let us understand what is displacement value. So, before understanding displacement value, let us understand the definition of displacement value. So, definition, the displacement value may be defined as the number of parts by weight of medicament that has displaced one part by weight of the base. So, this is the official definition of displacement value. So, instead of that, first let me make you all understand that what is displacement value. For example, if I have a glass and this glass is completely filled with water, it is completely filled with water. So, can I say that this glass has 100% water in it? Yes, definitely. Now, if I add certain amount of sugar in it, definitely this glass is going or this sugar is going to displace certain amount of water from this, definitely. So, this 100% of water is going to be down by certain amount. For example, let us say we have added 10% sugar. So, now the water present is just 90%. So, can I say that the displacement value of this glass is 10%? Because 10% of sugar has displaced certain amount of water and now the total quantity of water is nothing but the 90%. In the same way, here also the displacement value is nothing but it is the value that is being displaced by the medicament, because as we know that in suppositories we have added bases and we have added medicament. So, the part that the medicament displaces of the entire base is nothing but the displacement value. I will be giving one more example. Let us consider this is a suppository. Okay. So, this is a suppository which contains only base, only 100% base. In this cases, if we are adding medicament which is antifungal in nature. So, if we have added medicament that is of 5% quantity. So, now Initially this entire thing was of 100%, this entire thing contained 100% basis. Now what happened, we are incorporating 5% of medicament into it. So can I say that the displacement value is 5% or the amount is nothing but it is 5% of extra thing that you have incorporated into that entire thing. So certain amount is being displaced by a medicament, is nothing but the displacement value. So the volume of suppositories from a particular mold will be constant, but the weight will vary. Definitely the volume of the mold in which we are making suppository is going to remain the same, because volume is not going to have any change. However, there is going to be a change in the weight of the suppository. Initially, if the weight of the suppository was something, let us take an example, if it was 20 gram, but that 20 gram was everything of that base only. However, if you have added certain amount of API into it, now the weight is definitely going to vary. So here displacement value is very important, and displacement value will always make the weight remains changed and the volume will always remain unchanged. So the density of the medicament usually differ from the density of the base. It's obviously it is going to happen, the density has no relation. If the density is used is of the base, it is going to be completely different. When the medications are used or when the API are used, the density of the medication is going to be completely different. So depending upon the density, the weight is going to vary when you are adding API or when you are adding base. Moving ahead, as a result of the different density, the amount of base required for each suppository is going to be affected. Definitely. For example, if you are making a suppository, if you are making two suppository, one suppository is of coca butter and the another suppository is of theobroma oil. So in such cases, the density of theobroma oil and coca butter is completely different. So how much amount of medication you are adding, what is going to be the percentage of weight is going to differ. So here I would like to club that displacement value is going to remain different for different types of suppositories, because if we are using suppositories which is of various wide range, the displacement value is definitely going to vary. Depending upon the type of suppository that you are going to use, the displacement value may change. Then moving ahead, it is very important to understand this calculation of displacement value, because through this calculation only we are being able to understand the types of suppositories, the method in which we are using suppositories, because the calculation is of prime concern in the manufacturing of suppositories. So let us understand, we have to understand this step very carefully. First of all, let us take a situation where we are supposed to prepare 6 suppositories. So we have given it as a name A. We are preparing 6 suppositories and we have given it as A gram. हम 6 suppositories बना रहे हैं जिसका नाम है, जिसको हमने A gram का weight दिया है. Next, we are weighing and 6 suppositories that contain 40% medicament. Now here we have named the suppositories as B. So please be very attentive here, because initially in case 1 what we have done, we are making 6 suppositories that contains only base and we have named it as A. Okay? And in another case what we are doing, we are making suppositories, another 6 suppositories that contains base plus 40% your API, and we have named this thing as B. So do not get confused what is A and what is B. Next step is what? The amount of theobroma oil present in medicated suppositories will be 60%. So here this is named as C. This is very simple. Let us understand what this statement is saying. Here the 6 suppositories which was made by using 40% API. So the same 6 suppositories is going to contain base that is actually had 60% base, because 40% contains API and 60% is the base. We are naming this entire thing as C. We are naming this entire thing as C. Before moving ahead, let us have what is A, let us have a discussion on what is A, what is B and what is C. What we are doing is we are preparing suppositories. Number of suppositories are nothing but they are just 6. हम 6 suppositories बना रहे हैं और इनिशियली हमने क्या किया, इसमें हमने सिर्फ बेस डाला, वी हैव जस्ट इनकॉर्पोरेटेड बेस. सो व्हाट वी आर डूइंग इज वी आर मेकिंग सपोजिटरीज दैट इज ऑफ 6 number and that contains only base, no other medicaments are involved. So that base is being named as A, we are named as A. In the next step what we have done is we are making suppositories, same 6 suppository by using another base which contains 40% medicament, जिसमें 40% आपने कोई ना कोई API डाला, दवाई डाली आपने, ठीक है, जिसको हमने क्या नाम दिया, हमने वी हैव कॉल्ड इट एज B, ठीक है. ना इस सेम सिनेरियो में, इस सेम चीज में अगर 40% मेडिकामेंट है तो 60% बेस होगा, इट्स वेरी ऑब्वियस, 60% बेस होगा. इसको हमने क्या नाम दिया, इसको हमने कहा ये C है. सो आई होप एवरीवन इज गोइंग टू बी वेरी क्लियर विद दिस, व्हाट इज A, व्हाट इज B एंड व्हाट इज C. Moving on, moving ahead. Now calculate the amount of medicament present in the medicated suppository. अब हमें ये देखना है कि मेडिकामेंट कितना प्रेजेंट था. हमने तो कहा कि 40% मेडिकामेंट प्रेजेंट था, the quantity of medicaments was 40%. So what we are doing is 40 divided by 100 into B, because we do not need the percentage, we need the actual quantity. Okay, so इसको हमने B से मल्टीप्लाई किया. अब आपको पता है what is B. B is nothing but it is the amount of suppository, it is the amount of medicament that is present in the suppository. And इन सब को हमने एक नया नाम दिया which is known as D gram, because मैंने आपको बताया कि हमें यहाँ पे परसेंटेज से कोई लेना देना नहीं है, we just need the amount in grams. So this thing is nothing but your D gram. Understanding? Now here the amount of theobroma oil displaced by medicament. Here is our main step, that how much quantity of our medicament has displaced the theobroma oil. Here theobroma oil is nothing but it is our base. So how much amount of theobroma oil has displaced our base is named as A minus C. Now what was A? A was the total amount of weight or the total quantity which contains only base. And what was C? C was nothing but it is the amount of base which is being present when that particular suppository is being displaced by another substances, another medicament. इसको हमने C नाम दिया था. So अगर आपको ये देखना है कि मेडिकामेंट ने सपोजिटरी में से कितने परसेंट बेस को डिस्प्लेस किया, तो फॉर दैट पर्पस व्हाट यू आर गोइंग टू नीड इज यू आर गोइंग टू सब्सट्रैक्ट A minus C. A minus C को आपको उससे सब्सट्रैक्ट करना है. Then eventually for calculation of displacement value we are supposed to use this formula, that D upon A minus C. Now what was D? D was nothing but it is the quantity of medicament in grams, and A minus C is nothing but it is the amount of or the substance that is being displaced by our API into the base. So this is an important calculation which is very important in order to understand that how to make suppositories, what are the quantities of base, how much amount the API is displacing of the base. So it is a very important thing. So in order to understand these things in a more deeper way, let's have a solution or a problem on it. So this is a problem through which we can understand the displacement value in a more deeper way. Let us understand what is being written here. Determine the displacement value of a medicament in theobroma oil suppositories containing 40% medicament prepared in 1 gram mold. The weight of 10 suppositories is 14.66. So there are multiple information that is given in the question itself. So here starting or taking slowly and gradual steps. So let us understand. Initially हमको क्या दिया गया है इस question में? Weight of 10 suppositories containing theobroma alone is 1 into 10 is 10 gram. Remember the A of the previous slide. Now this is nothing but it is your A. A क्या था? A सिर्फ था suppository which contains only and only your base. No medicaments is present in that. So here we have only A. A is nothing but it is the total amount of suppository that contains only base. No medicament is present in that. So if we are making 10 suppositories, so here the entire thing becomes your 10 gram. पीछे वाले slides में we had prepared 6 suppositories. In this slides we are supposed to prepare 10 suppositories. Moving on, weight of 10 suppositories containing 40% medicament. 40% medicament है ये 14.6 is because 40 upon 100 into whatever the quantity here you get has come into this value 14.66. Okay. So it is very important to understand from there this value has come. 10 suppositories हमने बनाई थी जिसमें आपकी जो बेस थी वो तब वो कितनी हो जाएगी अगर आपने उसमें 40% मेडिकामेंट डाला हुआ था. अब आपकी जो टोटल वेट होती है सपोजिटरी की, अगर आप उसमें 40% मेडिकामेंट डालते हो, सो दिस इज द वेट ऑफ द सपोजिटरी 14.66 ग्राम. मूविंग ऑन टू द अनदर स्टेप. सो नाउ अमाउंट ऑफ थियोब्रोमा ऑयल प्रेजेंट, एक्चुअल अमाउंट. When the medicaments occupy 40% of a suppository, the rest of the amount, that is the 60%, is definitely occupied by base. So what is going to be the amount of theobroma oil? That, remember, theobroma oil is the base that we are using here to manufacture the suppository. So theobroma oil में 60 into 100 is 14.66. So this is the amount of base. Okay, so this is the amount, nothing but it is the amount of base. So amount of medicament present, a medicament of this, because this is the total quantity of total amount of suppository. Here let me be more precise. Let us consider this as our suppository. Total weight of 10 suppositories are 14.66 gram. In this we have to understand that how much is the medicament weight and how much is the weight of your base. So it becomes very important to understand how much quantity is the base incorporated and how much quantity is the medicament incorporated. So here we have understood that this is the amount of, or this is the quantity of base that has been incorporated. Here, so let us understand the amount of medicament. अगर total quantity पूरी suppository की 14.66 होती है तो उसकी 40% कितना होगा? 40% of 14.66 is 5.86 ग्राम है. बहुत easy है ये. It's for just 5.86 because this is the 40% of this entire thing, entire 10 suppositories. Then amount of theobroma oil displaced by 5.68 gram of medicament. Now how much quantity of base is being displaced by your medicament? Your medicament, let us consider as an antifungal. So how much quantity of that antifungal agent has displaced your theobroma oil? It's very simple. 10 minus 8.75 which comes as 1.20 gram. ठीक है. So 1.20 gram is nothing but it is the amount of base that is being displaced by your suppository. So here the displacement value calculation comes to be 5.86 divided by 1.20 as almost 5. So this is the calculation here that we are going to understand, or divided by 5, here you get another value here. So that is nothing but this is your displaced value. So by understanding this problem, we understand that how displacement value is calculated. Displacement value calculation is of prime importance when we are going to manufacture suppositories which has medication incorporated into it, because when we are making suppositories, it is very important to understand that how much quantity of base you have added, how much quantity of medicament you have added, and how much quantity of that medicament is being, or it is displacing that base. So moving on to the next slide. As I have already discussed, manufacturing or preparation of suppositories is of various, it is of actually prime importance or prime concern, because suppositories are very delicate products, very delicate sort of medicaments that need stringent storage conditions. So if these storage conditions aren't maintained properly, there are various problems that arises out of all these things. So in this slide we can see about two important problems known as stability problems of suppositories. The very first problem is nothing but blooming, and the another problem is nothing but your hardening. ये तो ऐसे problems है which cannot be eliminated if things are not kept properly, if the suppositories are not stored properly, then these two problems is going to hamper the manufacturing of suppositories or hamper the storage conditions, and eventually is going to degrade or make the products unacceptable. So let us understand what is blooming. So blooming, what happens when we store suppositories for a longer period of time, and due to unfavorable circumstances or due to unfavorable condition, there is a slight deposition of white powder on the surface of suppository. There is deposition of white powder on the surface of suppository. This is nothing but this is known as blooming of suppository. Blooming of suppository often results into an unacceptable appearance of suppository, which is completely not acceptable by us as well, by patients and by medical professionals. So, blooming, in order to understand blooming, we can understand that when we keep things for a longer period of time, there is a white slimy mold generation there. So, in such cases also here also the same thing happens, there is a deposition of whitish layer on the surface of the suppository, which makes it unacceptable by the patients, by the medical professionals, because it loses its aesthetic value. Understanding the another stability problems of suppositories, that is hardening. Hardening, what happens sometimes during storage, the suppositories, because of the bases incorporated into it, it becomes hard and very rigid. So, what happens here, sometimes what happens, crystallization affects it, or initially what all these things happens. So, what is the major things here? When excessive hardening of suppositories takes place, the melting is of prime concern here. If we can imagine, if something becomes excessive hard, the melting of that things is really next to impossible. So, and we know that melting of suppositories is of prime concern for us, because until it melts, it is not going to produce any action. So, melting plays a very important role here. So, in order to avoid these problems, strict storage conditions must be maintained, and on top of all these things, selection of bases plays a very important role. What kind of base you are selecting? You are either going for emulsified cocoa butter, you are choosing hydrogenated oils, or using, or you are going for emulsifying agents. So, depending upon type of things or types of bases you are using, these two important problems of suppositories can definitely be eliminated. So, blooming and hardening are the two problems of the suppositories that occurs if the suppositories are not kept in a proper condition. Now, moving on to a different topic known as evaluation of suppositories. Evaluation of suppositories is very important in order to check the stability, the uniformity of weight, the appearance of the suppository, because while the suppositories are being prepared, whenever when it reaches market, it should maintain its integrity, firmness, solidity, its aesthetic value, and all such kind of things. So, it is very important that whenever we have manufactured suppositories, its evaluation is also of prime concern for us. So, here are certain points that are being mentioned here. Let us understand. Melting range test, appearance test, breaking test, liquefaction test, uniformity of weight test, and dissolution test. We are going to understand these all tests in a more deeper way. Let us understand each test one by one. First is the appearance test. As the name suggests, the appearance of suppositories plays a very important role. If the appearance of suppositories is not done in a proper way, what may happen? The aesthetic value may come down, unacceptability might happen, compliance will not occur. So, such are the problems. So, appearance are always checked by naked eye, because everything appearance is always seen by naked eye also. So, checking of the appearance was also done by naked eye, and external surface or the internal surface must appear uniform. It should be uniform in nature. It should have a smooth texture. It should not have small pores on it, or any kind of abbreviations, or any kind of oozing out from any of the surfaces. So, basically the appearance should be very good. It should have a good aesthetic value. Then compliance indicates satisfactory subdivision and dispersion of suspended material. What here is important here is, whatever material or API you are incorporating into manufacturing of suppository, it should be very much clearly suspended into each and every fragments, be it the upper portion, be it the lower portion, or be it the middle portion of the suppository. Everywhere the uniform distribution of the medicaments must take place. Surface appearance and color can be verified by assessing absence of fissure, exudation, and pitting. So, if there is any kind of fissures, if there is any kind of expedition, if there is any kind of pitting, then that can be very much verified if we see everything by our naked eye. Moving on ahead, uniformity of weight test. This is another important criteria through which we can verify that whatever suppositories we have made is of excellent quality or not. So, for this test, for uniformity of weight test, at least we have to weigh 20 suppositories, and initially what we have to do is we have to take out the average weight of each and every suppositories. Now, each suppositories is weighed individually and weight is noted. So, in order to take the average weight, you have to calculate the weight of each and every suppositories. So, no suppository should deviate from the average weight by more than 5% except 2 should not deviate by more than 7.5%. So, if the total weight of the suppository is somewhat around 50 gram, then we have to be very careful that not more than 2 suppositories should deviate beyond the 5% or 7.5% range of the total average weight, because if it deviates from that end, it is very complicated, or the uniformity of weight content is not managed properly. The weight variation test may result if some cavities are filled and others are overfilled. Yes, definitely. If some of the cavities of these suppositories are sometimes underfilled, then definitely we might come to know while weighing each and every suppositories that yes, these suppositories are overfilled, or some of the suppositories are underfilled. So, these are some of the parameters through which we can understand that whatever suppositories we have made, whether they are overfilled or whether they are underfilled. So, that is all about the evaluation test of suppositories. In this lecture, we have covered 2 of them, that is appearance test and uniformity of weight test. We are going to cover the rest of the suppositories in the next lecture. I hope this lecture might be of useful for all of us, and so thank you so much.